starting off one day after our wedding. This was movies that were taken on our honeymoon. Jerks of the camera, we have now arrived in Chicago. We This is a view of Chicago's skyline. Next, we're going to scan around and you'll see the coast of Lake Michigan. Here is a boat that I had a strong fascination for, as you will see as we watch about 2 minutes of this boat traveling through the picture. Darryl warned me to pan slowly, and in doing so, I panned so slowly that we watched this film for just a little too long.
There we go. But we always meant to cut out this section, but we never got around to it. Well, we're almost there. Oh, here we are.
Now we can
Well, slow it down, Mary. Come on, come on, come on. Good girl. Notice the camera was jumping. We had this trouble a few times on our trip. We never did discover what it was. Now, here I was urging Mary to come over and see the fountain, but Mary wasn't feeling well. She was feeling very lazy besides.
This fountain was in a park, in the same park, right near the coast of Lake Michigan. We thought it was very beautiful, and we wanted to take pictures of it, not only with the movie, but also a picture of the two of us in front of the fountain.
Yeah, but our self-timer didn't work. So we spent the first 5 minutes just trying to get the self-timer to work. And in the meantime, I took these pictures with a movie camera. By the way, we never did get the self-timer to work.
And couldn't use it for the rest of our trip.
If I look grouchy there, that's because the self-timer didn't work.
Sound effects, Steve, of the water dripping. Maybe we should turn on the faucet.
Oh, this is a picture taken in Bob and Bobby's apartment in Chicago. We had gone to visit them while we stayed there. Because this is outdoor film indoors, that's why it's so red. Oh, there's Bob.
He had a very nice expression on his face.
Yeah.
For 1 minute you're going to catch a glimpse of me when I was dressed up, the only time on our entire trip.
Oh, this is just about the first real site of our trip. This is in Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. This, what we're seeing now is part of the road
That
was
looked like very level landscape.
Yeah, pasture land, something like that. But the shock came when you look on the other side of the road, because suddenly it seemed to be out of nowhere, this landscape appeared. This is called the Badlands, the Dakota Badlands. And you may not be able to see it in the picture, but they're eroded hilltops. They look like they've been carved out by water or by something else.
And the tops of those hilltops are just level with the opposite side of the road, so that these are deep in a valley, and it just drops suddenly right off the edge of the road.
They were called Badlands because of the difficulty in getting through them in the old days.
If you notice the rock, it's completely barren. There was very little vegetation. We found vegetation only on the hilltops or on the lower slopes, very little in between, as you see in this telephoto shot.
Oh, this is a place called Prairie Dog Town, also in Theodore Roosevelt National Park. On a piece of land about a few acres in size, there lives a whole town of prairie dogs. Well, as we approached them, they would chirp at us and bark at us. And the closest they let us get was about this far, which we took this with a telephoto lens on the movie camera. And there you see the little prairie dog with her babies. And if we tried it, we took one step closer. They'd duck down that hole, and they'd appear about 30 feet down from another hole, and they'd bark at us some more.
They never did let us get close enough to really see them, though. We felt badly about that.
These are shots Mary took out the window as we were driving through the rest of the park.
It was taken to show you some of the barrenness of the land, the complete lack of real vegetation. The plants that are growing on the side of the mountain are mostly what they call mesquite. Mesquite is a low bush, similar to sagebrush, very dry and doesn't require too much water for it to live. And so it lives in very barren, dry places. The valleys, however, did get enough rain so that there were many more trees and grass in the valleys. This ride was taking us down to the bottom of the valley, and there was a beautiful little park where Darryl and I had lunch. Now we've arrived in Glacier Park. Darryl wanted to chase a chipmunk and race down the hill, and the chipmunk raced away just as fast, and poor Darryl was unable to get his picture. But while he was looking for it, I got a picture of him.
How do you like our hats? We picked up those hats in Wolf's Point, Montana. Oh, you didn't see Mary's yet. Wait.
This was our first sight of snow. Remember that our trip was taken in the month of June. As a matter of fact, this was around June 25th or so, and here it was snow right near us. We just saw little patches of it on the mountainside at first, and we wanted to show you a little bit. You'll be surprised at what we see later on.
Don't look good, though.
Darryl, I think you need a push there. You're not going to make it. Or are you?
This is our first breakfast out. It wasn't really a breakfast. It was more like a lunch because we couldn't get the breakfast going until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
We tried to cook pancakes, but I didn't have any pancake turner.
Flip her over.
Flip her over it. Then we wanted to cook it on a charcoal fire, but a charcoal fire isn't hot enough for pancakes, and they dried out completely without cooking. Well, finally we built a wood fire, borrowed a flipper over, bought little plastic forks from the store, and we were all set. And here is our first successful pancake.
Well, back here in the East, Mary, a flipper over is
almost
called...
successful. It didn't quite make it. Here we go again, the jitters. That pancake was the most delicious I had ever eaten. After all, I started at 9 o'clock, and this was only 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I ate the pancakes.
Here I had run into the bush to find some animal or flower or something or other. I did this sporadically all during our trip. You should see our still pictures.
After we make tapes to go with the movies, then we can bore you for 2 hours with our still pictures. We were on our way up to a glacier. We had been told that this path led to a glacier, and we walked about 4 miles before realizing that we were never going to get to the glacier because it was still quite a distance away, and the path was blocked by a 20-foot snowbank. Here is a small example of some of the snow and some of the glaciers that we saw. Some of the ones which seemed to be big glaciers were nothing more than patches of snow. You had to get up fairly close to realize which was which.
This is called the Going into the Sun Road. It's one of the most scenic trips you could make at Glacier Park. Mary was taking pictures through the front windshield. Now, and that's the spots that you see in front of you. And we're going to drive through that tunnel. On the other side of the tunnel, there's a snowbank about 30 feet high. Watch, we'll go through it. The water you're going to see dripping down is from the melting snow. You see, it's the end of June and the snows are starting to melt. By about the end of July, they're completely melted.
And about the middle of August, it begins to snow again.
Here it comes. See the difference in the size of the car and the size of the snowbank? Some places the snowbanks were so high that the snowplows couldn't cut the top of it away, and they'd be hanging over the road. Oh, this is the restroom. Up there, the restrooms are still snowed in. They have smaller ones, but the main ones are all snowed in.
Smaller ones. You know the type.
Can't make it, huh, Mary? Here we go. We'll climb up to the top and see if we can get in through the chimney.
There's our little car in the background. Doesn't it look pretty?
It's cold, huh, Mary?
I was freezing.
This
Even
is
in June, it was pretty cold up there.
This is the top of the outhouse.
Nice resting place, Darryl, isn't it? Our first bear. It was such a thrill to see an animal coming right up to our car. Before the end of the trip, bears were no more of a thrill. We had seen our fill. But this, as our first, was lots of fun. He came up to every car on the road, looking so forlorn and begging for food. But with those heavy paws, I didn't want to get too close. This is Virginia City, Montana. It's a replica of Western town as it existed about 100 years ago. There's the Opera House with the stagecoach. The scene is a bit spoiled by the modern automobiles in front of the saloons and blacksmith shops. This was a very interesting shop window showing some of the things that were sold in the days when Virginia City was at its peak of fame.
Well, look at that waistline.
While we were there, we also had our picture taken by an old-fashioned movie. This is a big, big lake, isn't it? Well, it isn't any longer. 1 month after our trip, there were severe earthquakes in the Yellowstone region, especially in the region of this lake. And as a result, the lake vanished completely. The mountain was slid over right into the lake.
Oh, now we're in Yellowstone. That's Mary walking alongside of one of the many, many pools, hot pools and hot lakes of Yellowstone. That crust you see around the pool is really an algae that lives in this hot water. In these and many others of the hot pools that you'll see, the different colors of the algae are indicative of the temperature of the water. See in the background now of this sprouter guys or whatever it is, the different colors of the algae. The more rich the colors, the colder and the cooler the water. As the colors become more pastel and closer to white, the water is hotter. Mary, is that running too fast?
Here's our cowboy. Water's hot, isn't it, Darryl?
Yeah, it's very hot.
colored very beautifully, especially around the edges where you saw the different color algae. And sometimes the colors would just blend in gradually so that it would give a beautiful effect of the different shadings of colors as they approached the center where the very hottest water and the deepest color of the water was. Emerald Pool especially was a very fine example of this. Around the edges was a yellow algae, and right in the deep center, the water was so dark and rich that it gave a deep green color.
These are called the mud pots. They would sit there and bubble to themselves. They're just a mud pool which has volcanic activity below it. Much as we tried not to overexpose this picture, we did, because all our meters read incorrectly. Here's a telephoto of one of the little bloops.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Sound effects are very necessary with this scene. It just seems that.
This is a very funny story about this bear. We had just thrown our garbage away, and this bear came over to sample it. Now the rangers make these sunken garbage cans so it'll be inaccessible to the bears. But the bears have found ways to get to it. Watch this.
Better not tell them how, Darryl. Just let them watch.
How would you describe something like that anyway? Hey, that's our beans. That's our bag of beans he's taking.
We didn't quite get the entire film, however, because we ran out. But that bear finished off the whole can of beans. We were now exploring parts of the Yellowstone River and many of its various canyons. This area was called near the Tower Falls. Darryl went to look down over the edge. I wasn't quite as brave. I like to take pictures from above, but don't get me near the edge.
It's a long drop. This is part of the Yellowstone. This is the Yellowstone River you're looking at. And what you're seeing is the beginning stages of the Yellowstone Canyon. This is called Inspiration Point, Mary?
This was called Tower Falls.
Oh, the Tower Falls.
Chipmunk. Isn't he cute?
It's a squirrel, not a chipmunk. This is the Yellowstone Canyon. The only bad thing about this canyon is that the movie camera just can't describe it all. The field of view is too narrow. Some pictures we've taken with a 35mm show this a little bit better, because here it's hard to appreciate the awesome depth of this canyon. Well, that's Old Faithful. That's one of the poorer pictures we've taken of it. Matter of fact, it was so poor we stopped taking it. This is one of these geysers, a sawmill geyser, that erupts 55 minutes, erupts once every hour for 55 minutes each time. Very few visitors ever miss this geyser. This is called Riverside Geyser. This shoots at an angle across the river. And I'm sorry, go ahead.